Welcome to another episode of Automotive Heaven. Folks, every time I do one of these museums, I say it's Automotive Heaven, but I'm at the Gilmore Auto Museum in Hickory Corners, Michigan. I'm here with Josh Russell, and you're marketing director and
Director of Marketing and Development here.
here. Now, Josh, I got one question for you. With all the gorgeous cars you have in this museum, why do you have me start with this one here?
This is a great example of an unrestored Lincoln here in the Lincoln part of our museum. It's really an amazing piece that hasn't been touched, hasn't been altered, hasn't been heavily restored, and it kind of it shows you exactly what a survivor looks like from the early 1920s.
You know, I get it, but I don't get it. I have to explain something to you folks because you see these questionable looking vehicles go through auctions bringing more than a gorgeous restored car that a guy's got $300,000 in the restoration alone. And I'm going to explain a little bit of why and how that came about, what the whole story about that is, because people go like, oh, my car's worth a fortune, it hasn't been touched. Well, it's a rust bucket, but anyway, here's how it goes, folks. A car that's a survivor, hasn't been touched, like Josh says, is in value worth more money, because you could restore a car 10 times and you have a restored car. One of the reasons that these vehicles retain such a high value is because when a gentleman goes to restore a car like this, they come in here and they'll take 500 pictures, 300 pictures of this vehicle, because this vehicle tells the story of exactly how it was when it came out of the factory, down to the stitch, the welting on the interior, the headliner, everything about the vehicle, what was done in wood, what was done in brass, what was done, and the way it was done. So when a guy goes to restore a car, this vehicle here will give him all the knowledge he needs to put that car back to the original specs when it came out of the factory, right?
Car's only original once, right?
Right.
Finishes, paint, upholstery, everything that you had said. It's only period perfect and original once. So that's what everybody strives for.
It's very rare to see something like this. And to be honest with you, Josh, this vehicle is in pristine condition compared to some of the stuff that I've seen that's barn find survivors.
Right.
This one it seems to all be squared and not rotted away. So it really in value is worth, Is this a donated car, or is this a car that's on display from somebody's collection?
It's on loan, that's correct.
It's on loan. Now, a lot of the vehicles, this is what I want to ask about. Not a lot, but some of the vehicles here are on loan from car collectors, and they put them here to be displayed. Now, you guys change the displays here a lot.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that we do have so many folks who have their cars here on loan so that we can showcase them and pull cars out of private collections and share them with the public, which is terrific and part of our mission for education. And we strive to, here at the museum and with all of our partner museums on campus, to try to rotate out at least 25% of the collection. So every year that you might come back, a quarter of the cars that you see are different, or there are special exhibits and feature cars or featured makes that are out for everyone to see. So there's something new each time you come to the Gilmore Museum.
Join me today, folks, for a look at the Lincoln automobile at the Gilmore Auto Museum in Hickory Corners, Michigan. That's easy for me to say. You're going to love this one, folks. This really is a classic Lincoln Auto Museum.
Here we have a beautiful example of a 1939 Lincoln convertible. This is a LeBaron-bodied Lincoln. This is the 1939 marked the last year of what they call the big-bodied Lincoln. You can see big, expansive, plenty of room. In 1940, they transitioned to the Lincoln Zephyr, which was a smaller, streamlined Art Deco styled car. But this is it's a really beautiful LeBaron-bodied convertible. LeBaron was one of 15 different coach builders who built bodies, custom bodies for these Lincolns, so plenty of choices and options for the owners. And this had that Lincoln V12, 150 horsepower engine back in 1939.
1930 Lincoln. I mean, this is the last year of the L body style. This is very elegant. I understand why they change body styles and everything, but when you take a good look at this car, and I really believe that this was the original color combination on this thing, this vehicle, as we say, my cameraman Tim and I always say in the industry, this one pops, and this one really, really pops. But they went to another body style. Lincoln went to the K body style, and hopefully we could find one around here. But man, when you look at these vehicles, what they built back in the early 1900s, this is 1930, man, this was really an elegant automobile. 1922 Lincoln custom-built camping car. Only one was ever built. And this is the vehicle that was built for Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Harvey Firestone. They used to go out camping a lot together. Boy, I'd love to be a fly on that table and listen to the conversations of the three wise men that really made a difference in the economy of the world, not of the United States, but of the world. And it's amazing how simple it was back then to just go out camping with your friends. And like I say, conversations, man, I'd love to hear them. 1940 Lincoln Zephyr Town Car. Town car became a term that's still being used today. But the reason I stopped at this one, you can see the design of the vehicle, the sleek rounded back, the whole elegant style of this vehicle is special. I mean, it catches your eye immediately when you're walking by. So many gorgeous cars in this Lincoln display at the Gilmore Museum. This one grabbed me. And this is one of the cars I was talking about earlier about Edsel Ford. This is one of the vehicles, one of the last vehicles that he was part of designing before he passed away in 1943. Folks, there's so many gorgeous cars in this museum. We're going to run through just some of them. I want to get you to come out to a place like this. Believe me, folks, when it comes down to automotive heaven, that's where we're at today at the Gilmore Auto Museum. There's actually, I believe, 7 museums on the site here. There's 90 acres. I believe that it's the largest auto museum in North America, and it's just done so well. This is a 1922 Lincoln Type 112 Phantom, and it's just, like I say, we're going to run through some of these cars because I want you to see what's here. 1942 Lincoln Zephyr, and we've talked about it earlier in the show. Man, this one really, really is something because in the description it says it's unrestored, it's 100% original. Man, I'm looking at the car and it's just really too good to be true. It really is an attractive vehicle. It had to be stored somewhere in a humidor, literally in a humidor. Folks, when you have vehicles like this, you just don't put them away in a garage. It has to be a controlled environment, humidity, heat, limited, no sunlight really, because the sun will actually ruin the interiors and all the other stuff. So this car was actually put away and had to be in a humidor. 1942 Lincoln Zephyr. 1954 Lincoln Capri Sport Coupe. You know, we've done things from the early 1900s through the 40s, and you see now the body styles that really changed. And in the 50s, this is what everybody kind of went to, this type of style. You know, I want to mention something about the Lincoln automobile and the Ford Motor Company, and that a lot of it had to do with Edsel Ford, the son of Henry Ford. Not only was he a car designer, but he had vision of where he wanted to take the company and all of that. But you know, he already passed away before this vehicle here was in production. He lived from 1893, Edsel Ford, and he was born in 1893, and he passed away in 1943. Kind of a sad story for a gentleman like Edsel Ford. He was an engineer, he was a car designer, but he fought his whole life to take the Ford Motor Company somewhere else, and his father fought him all the way. His father didn't want to spend any money. He wanted to spend money. He wanted to do something elegant. His father wanted to keep things simple. 1949 Lincoln Cosmopolitan. This really was the year they started to go into the real sleek. I mean, I call it the aerodynamic look. Everything is rounded. Everything has a style to it. I mean, it just from the interior throughout the exterior of the car. What's really cool too, back then, they were putting spotlights on vehicles. A lot of people actually put spotlights on their vehicles. One of the reasons was, like in California and that, or a lot of places in America, roads in the 40s, late 40s, were still very primitive in America. We didn't have a highway system. Route 66 was built from Chicago to LA, but other places did not have it. So when you rode down the street just to read street signs, or even if you pulled up to someone's house to read the numbers on the streets, they put spotlights on vehicles. So they were not only attractive looking, but useful in that respect too. Folks, I've told this story many, many times, but I never was able to show the picture of the person, Henry Leland. Leland started as a car designer. He was the one that was a key factor in designing the first automobile he designed was a Cadillac motor division. And Leland was not a very good businessman, but he was an excellent car designer. He's the only one, I believe, in history that not only designed the Cadillac automobile, but he was the one that designed the Lincoln Automobile Company. And a cute part of the story is, from things I've read in the past, Leland and Henry Ford became very good friends. In fact, the Leland family would come over to the Ford family for dinner and stuff, and Henry Ford's wife and Leland's wife became very good friends. And when he got in trouble with the Lincoln automobile, it was the only time that Mrs. Ford went to Henry Ford and to Edsel and told them, "You will buy the Lincoln Automobile Company." And that's how it all came about, briefly, but the story is really beyond belief. I'm Richie Z, and this is Josh Russell. We're at the Gilmore Auto Museum in Hickory Corners, Michigan. Josh, you started telling me about this car. I don't want to hear about it. Tell them.
It's a really amazing piece of history right here. Not only is it neat to see a 1955 Continental Mark II, not a Lincoln, but Continental, because this was a new division and its own brand or mark of car in 1955. But this is actually one of 3 prototype cars that were built. So this isn't a production car. This is a survivor prototype, one of the first Continentals, Continental Mark IIs that were built. This was a William Clay Ford project, including some noted designers, including Gordon Burig, who designed the Cord. But where everything at this point in the 1950s had lots of chrome, started to get really outlandish and extravagant, this was a subtle, clean, subdued approach to design, and really was revered as an immediate classic when it came out in the mid-1950s.
Josh, I got one thing to add to it. You did, I mean, this is really cool. I love hearing the history of this car. Folks, this car in 1955 cost $10,000. It's to this day, it's rumored in the auto industry that one of the reasons this vehicle did not make it was because it was double the price of a Cadillac, the high-end Cadillac back in 1955.
And was a car that actually cost them way more to make than they actually sold it for, right? It was the best of everything.
You bring up a great point. You know, I love working with people like Josh. When you talk about retooling the plant or tooling a plant to make a vehicle like this, even in the 50s, it cost what, 100, maybe 150, 200 million dollars to build a vehicle like this.
That's right. That's right.
This 1972 Mark tells a story of Lincoln, and I believe it was 1968 they went with a similar body style of this car, but I know that in the 70s, I believe it was 72, Elvis went in and bought so many cars, but he bought a number of these cars and gave them away to people. But there's our famous pictures of Elvis in a white one of these. And I remember Sinatra, Dean Martin, I believe Sammy Davis Jr. There was pictures of all of them with automobiles like this. You know, when I was growing up, the car industry was magic. We did so many things in the car industry that when it came to marketing, they brought movie stars and singers and everybody else into the vehicles to help sell them. They actually gave a lot of the vehicles away to people like that to increase the interest. But you know what? I don't even think they needed to do stuff like that back then, because these vehicles, when they came out, they sold themselves. You knew this was a Lincoln coming down the street back in the 70s. There was no thought of, like today, you don't know if it's a Hyundai, a Lincoln, or a Cadillac, or a Kia, whatever. Okay, they all look the same. Mercedes, they all look the same. Back then, we had class, we had elegance, we had style, not only with the cars, but the way we lived. You know, we've touched on every era of Lincoln that's been around since the very beginning. That one car that we saw that Josh had me start out with, that Survivor, which was cool. But this is an era I grew up in, 1964, Lincoln Continental. This car, it was around for a number of years, but it had the suicide doors. People ask me sometimes, why did they call them suicide doors? Very simple, folks. If you got hit, if you got T-boned in the two doors, you weren't able to get out of the vehicle. That's one of the reasons they went away from the suicide doors. I like the concept, and today, this would probably be better than ever, because people are a lot larger than they were back in the day of this car, or when they were doing the suicide doors. But this is another classic Lincoln Continental here at the Gilmore Auto Museum in Hickory Corners, Michigan. I'm Richie Z for Automotive Heaven. I'd like to let you know that you can see, I think we're about 12 or 13 television shows on my site, but we're also on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You just go to Richie Z, R-I-C-H-I-E-Z-I-E, and you see more shows like this. We're going to be doing more shows here at the Gilmore Auto Museum in the future. So stay tuned. I'd like to thank you for watching. Host Richie Z, camera Tim Alway, edited by Zoe Leard. Tour Chicago with Richie Z. Personal and private tours, 2 people, 4 people, or 6 people. A tour of Chicago you'll never forget. Chicago is our inspiration. The Mag Mile, Museum Campus, Historic Chicago, Theater District, Millennium Park, Water Tower, Art Institute, and so much more. Call Richie Z at 312-841-2560. Our website is at www.richiezie.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Richie Z. GoFundMe page. Very important that we get funding for projects like this. We also do historic presentations of Chicago on Zoom. So tune in at richieZ.com